Good Shabbos and good Yontiv. Tonight, of course, is the beginning of Pesach, and I think an important discussion is trying to understand the miracles that occur over the story of Pesach, and that's the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea. One way to look at those miracles are very simply the way it's stated clearly in the Torah and understood on a simple level. That is, that all of the miracles are way beyond nature. These are things which are completely defy any rules of nature, and therefore show the great Yad HaChazaka, the strong hand, Vizra Netuya, and the outstretched arm of God. Or they could be understood as miracles within nature, and therefore the miracle is one which is understood by the fact that the miracles, or that these occurrences happen at the time which was most appropriate for the Jewish people, that it affected the Egyptians, and that they were therefore successful in leaving Egypt, and the Egyptian army was destroyed. So that for sure is a miracle also, but it's more within the realm of nature. I'd like to quote Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, who makes the following suggestion. He's talked about the fact that scientists today try to understand how we could read the miracles of the story of Exodus and understand them within the rules of nature. And he talks about the splitting of the sea, which is not really the Red Sea, which most people understand, and therefore it's not as depicted in the famous movie The Ten Commandments, but rather it's in the Yam Suf, which is the Reed Sea. And the Reed Sea is just really the body of water, which might be someplace like the Nile Delta. And they suggest that a easterly wind that's sustained, I believe, for about 4 hours at 65 miles an hour, or something close to that, would actually blow the water away and create a dry enough land to cross from one side to the other. And then when the wind the wind stops, then the water will come back, and exactly as it said in the Torah. But more importantly, he says, what's really the story here? The story is that the Egyptian army, led by Pharaoh, comes with chariots. And chariots are the tanks and the missiles and the bomber planes of today. They were the most technologically advanced instruments of war that existed in that time. And anyone would be scared of seeing these chariots coming after them, because nobody else possessed these chariots. These were because they were because of the wealth and the riches and the technological advances of the Egyptian empire. And now they're coming to attack the Jewish people, who it's almost like today in Ukraine, right? You know, you're coming with missiles and bomber planes to a people that they don't necessarily have the tools to fight it. And what Rabbi Sacks suggests is that this story is really one which is trying to give you a very specific, simple message. That you think, or we think, that if we have all these technological advances, we're going to win the war. But what really happens here? The wind blows the water. It's enough for human beings to pass by on foot. But as soon as the Egyptians go in with their chariots, the water comes back, or even without that, it's muddy. And when you read the description in the Torah, you'll see that description in the Torah says that their chariots got stuck. In a sense, the one technological advance that they had, the fact that they had these chariots which scared the daylights out of the Jewish people, is exactly why they failed. So we always think, Kochi va'otzim yadi asli yisachayil hazeh. The strength and the power of my own hand has made our army, has given us our strength, has given us the ability to win over our enemies. But at the end, God really rules the world, and you think you have everything you need, and things don't work out that way. So he says, on a simple level, you could read it as you would almost as a child. We want to just believe in very simple miracles. God comes and destroys everything of the Egyptians. But in reality, it could be that it's within nature. And the message is, yes, it's God that rules the world, and human beings don't have the power that they think they have. But sometimes our best plans are laid to waste by nature, or by our own human frailty, our own weaknesses, our own bad decision making. And that's exactly what might have happened with the other 10 plagues. If you go online, you could find a lot of YouTubes explaining how these are possible by nature. And without going into detail, I would say, again, the message might be very simple, that these 10 plagues represent, 3 of them show that God has dominion over the water, 3 of them show that God has dominion over the land, and 3 of them show that God has dominion over the air. In other words, it doesn't matter where you are on this earth, it's God that rules the world. You are not as strong as you thought you are. And the 10th one is the Makas Bechoros, the death of the firstborn. Then it says, Ani Hashem, God himself, and the Haggadah stresses the fact that it's God himself, Ani v'lo malach, it's I myself and not an angel. It's saying that ultimately, you think you have the Bechar, the firstborn, the strong boy that you always wanted, who's going to carry on your legacy, who's going to make sure to be the warriors of the next generation. That's your might. Might, and you think might makes right. No, God is saying, ultimately, it's not you who makes that decision. It's God that makes the decision. So how it happens, whether it happens through an open miracle, or whether it happens through a natural occurrence, which might be a miracle in disguise, it doesn't really matter. The message is more simple. The message is, don't think that you have control over events. Ultimately, what makes something right is not your power, it's not your might. It's the Yad HaChazaka, the strong hand of God. It's the moral principles that God tells us that we must have, and that's what guides us, and that's what controls events. And again, you could even see it today in what's happening in Ukraine. Russia might have all of the missiles and all of the tanks and all of the bombers. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, of course, they're killing many Ukrainians, and the tragedy is beyond belief. But it doesn't look like they're going to win, because it's not just your power. It's the might, not only of God, it's the might and the will of the people. And if the people have that desire to win, to make sure that they succeed and that they are not oppressed by an enemy, they will win. God gives them that power. We see the same thing happen in Israel, whether it's the 1948 or the 6-Day War. It doesn't matter how many soldiers are amassed against us at our borders, but if we have the will to fight, if we have the need to fight, if we stand up for what's really right, hopefully God gives us the power and the ability to overcome our enemies. And therefore, what really this leads to is the fact that we create a Jewish people which has that strong belief in God, has a strong belief in principles and morals which are beyond just power and the strength of our army, but rather it's the strength of our principles, the strength of our ideas, of our philosophies, of our ideologies. Those are the things which are going to create success and hopefully let us live as a Jewish nation, strong and independent for years to come. Good Shabbos and good Yom Tov.